Week 6 of the Karen Read trial, and some of the evidence was brought in backwards.
This entire case has been completely flipped. Some of the witnesses have people scratching their heads. I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
Week 6 of the Karen Read trial brought several Massachusetts State Police to the witness stand. Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, team commander for the Special Emergency Response Team, or SERT, testified about going to the 34 Fairview Road property the day John O'Keefe's death, January 29, 2022, and participating in a search. They say they found material including 6 or 7 pieces of taillight, as well as a sneaker.
The next witness, Maureen Hartnett, a forensic scientist with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, testified that she took those samples from the police and also analyzed other evidence. And she showed the jury photos of Karen Read's Lexus SUV.
Rear driver's side of the black Lexus SUV. That's the rear of the black Lexus SUV. There's damage here on the bumper, and there was also damage to the rear door. I think it may be blocked by the caution tape.
Now, with reference to the damage that you were talking about that may have been blocked by the caution tape in the prior exhibit, do you see that in this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, before you draw the jury's attention to where in this exhibit you observed that damage.
Right here. It's on the rear door, right underneath the window.
Sergeant, what's up on...
Now, if you're having a hard time hearing the prosecutor, Adam Lally, everybody was having a hard time hearing him. And in fact, at one point, the judge told him, if you don't speak up, we're going to have to turn the air conditioning off because the jury can't hear you. And lo and behold, he didn't. And so they turned the air conditioner off in the courtroom. And it's a tiny courtroom. I tried a case in there one time, and it can't be pleasant to be in there in June when it's hot.
That's like grounds for mistrial, because if I was the jury, I'd hate him. I was like, at that moment, I'd be like, this guy's going to the ground.
And he needs all the friends he can get at this point.
Screen is photograph 2539. That's now been marked as exhibit 160. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the rear passenger area of the black Lexus. There's damage in this area here.
And keep that in mind. This is really important as we go through this in this episode. It was the rear passenger side of the SUV that had the broken taillight.
The rear tail light. There's a sticker here, and I know you can't see it. I don't know if you can zoom in. There's a letter on the sticker, I believe it's A, that denotes that there's something there that I was going to collect. And right next to that sticker here is the apparent hair that I noticed.
Which is interesting because between the time that she allegedly backed into John O'Keefe at right after midnight on the 28th until she drove back to his place and slept, and then drove in the morning over to 2 other people's houses, Jessica McCabe and Carrie Roberts, and then drove back. It said that she drove 60 miles in a blizzard. So people question, how could a hair stick to the car that was driven 60 miles in a blizzard?
Also, if she's reversing into someone, thankfully haven't been in a lot of accidents, haven't hit a lot of people.
You haven't hit a lot of people?
I haven't hit a lot of people, not a lot.
That's good.
But that's like a scuff mark that from a person. What is the person wearing that is doing that, and how heavy is that impact? I feel like if that scratch is relevant at all, how is a soft, squishy human that's wearing clothing, that looks like it was like scraped, like if you hit a tree and keep backing into that's like a whole scrape mark there.
And it could also be pre-existing. I mean, no car is perfect. You drive a brand new car off the lot, and it's not long until some nitwit pushes their grocery cart into you, or some kid throws a ball at your car, whatever. I mean, no after you drive a car off the lot, no car is perfect. So who knows if that's really related? But what she was trying to point to was that white sticker on the lower bottom side of it, and I don't know how a hair
The
would
hair that survived the snowstorm.
in a blizzard, and not just it was a blizzard. So she went on.
Photograph 2558. And similarly, Ms. Hart, did you recognize anything in this photograph in regard to something that you had marked?
Yes, that's the rear bumper of the SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in a little on that placard. Okay. And Ms. Hart, in this photograph, what, if anything, is depicted that you denoted something to sort of reflect or further examine at a later?
There is pieces of apparent glass here on the bumper.
Okay, pieces of glass on the bumper. And again, how did those pieces of glass stick on the bumper if the car was driven 60 miles in a blizzard? That's quite a feat.
What was the distance between these two houses? Do we know?
Well, she had driven around and around and around, though. Remember, she went down to his house, then she went up to Jess McCabe's and Carrie Roberts's, and then they drove around. So we don't know, but that's what was speculated, that she drove 60 miles. Well, all right. So she showed the car, she showed the headlight, the tail light, she showed the hair, she showed the glass. But under cross-examination by defense attorney Alan Jackson, Hartnett had difficulty answering whether there's a clear chain of custody as to pieces of taillight said to have been collected from Brian Albert's yard through to their crime lab.
Objection.
Sustained.
You don't personally have any chain of custody information about those items we just went over predating March 14th, do you?
I personally do not have any data that would indicate where those items of evidence were prior to them being accepted into the lab.
Chain of custody is really very interesting. I'm sure most of our true crime followers know how important it is, but if there's anyone out there that's not familiar with how important it is, chain of custody is important in any case, really. From the time that a piece of evidence is found and then bagged or tagged or both, and then transported to the police department's evidence room and stored there in a secure area that nobody gets in and out of unless they're logged in and out. And then that piece of evidence is brought into the courtroom in an evidence bag or however it's brought in. There needs to be what's called a chain of custody, and each one of those people needs to testify, or there needs to be a reliable system that is used, and these people all sign on and sign off, and it's certified. So Alan Jackson is kind of indicating, laying the groundwork, once again, taking the state's witnesses and turning them around to the defense, raising some reasonable doubt that, if you don't have a chain of custody, there's reasonable doubt, but this kind of plants the seed in the jurors' minds that, maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe the evidence is not so credible, and maybe there was some kind of funny business. I mean, I don't know. I hate to say it. This is him laying the groundwork for the conspiracy.
At this point, it's not even putting the seed. At this point, it's like watering this plant that's as big as the one behind you, because it's like we have the Stop and Shop bags, we have the Solo cups filled with blood, we have the leaf blower. It's very messy.
Speaking of evidence issues and things that just, make you stop and think, the next witness came on the stand was Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Yuri Buchanan. He was one of the key investigators in the case, and he actually went to the scene of 34 Fairview Road, and he oversaw a search in the snow on February 3rd and 4th, a week after John O'Keefe's death, and he testified, showing the jury photos of what he says that they found at that stage.
A larger piece of red plastic with black molding around the edge, located next to the telephone switch box on the grass area at 34 Fairview Road. This photograph here depicts the area which we are excavating during the morning hours of February 3rd, 2022. As the shovel works its way towards the grass, my laser pointer is directing your attention to Mr. O'Keefe's hat that was compacted underneath the snow.
All right. And so we got that little tour of what they did, the week after the death of John O'Keefe. And, they found a lot of stuff that purportedly they found this plastic, they found his hat, they found glass purportedly of the cocktail glass that John O'Keefe is said to have walked out of one of the bars with. The police sergeant testified to all of this stuff. But he, interestingly, as brought out on cross-examination now, these searches, bear in mind, were done on February 3rd and 4th of 2022. But on cross-examination, it was brought out that he never wrote his report for 21 months.
And the first report that indicates anything that happened or was recovered at the location on either February 4th or February 10th, that was first notated in a report dated November 4th, 2023, year and several months later, correct?
If you say so, I do not know the exact date. That report would have to be presented to me.
May I approach?
Yes.
So he was trying to deny it. He's fighting with the he was fighting with the cross-examiner. You never fight with the cross-examiner because it just, as I said in a previous episode, it makes the jury focus on, oh, you don't want to admit that you didn't write that report until November of 2023. Well, here's what's going to happen. That's the report.
You don't have
What's
to read the
date?
whole thing, but if you can skip to the part that talks about the February 4th and February 10th searches.
Okay, what's the date? Where's the drum beat?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were finished already. What's the date of that? Well, let me ask a foundational question. Does that refresh your recollection as to the date of the report that actually talks about the February 4th and February 10th searches?
It does.
And what's the date of that report, sir?
This report is dated November 4th, 2023.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
The
So,
sigh,
there again, the defense is very effectively taking these states' witnesses and, if not turning them their way, challenging their credibility, and that's your job if you're a defense attorney. And so the next thing that the state police sergeant Buchanan talked about was the investigation of Karen Reed's Lexus SUV, which we showed you a little bit earlier. They took it to the garage, or what the police department anywhere calls their Sally Port. This was the Canton Police Department. Oddly and relevantly, after a full day of testimony on day 20, then on day 21, Sergeant Buchanan admitted on cross-examination that the video shown to the jury was backwards, a mirror image, inverted.
Do you see Trooper Proctor toward the back of the rear of the vehicle there?
I can't tell because of what the head is. I just know that Trooper Proctor was wearing a black hat.
It's the person in that in the video to the left, to the rear of the car, is wearing a black hat, correct?
I can't tell. I don't want to be locked into a statement where later on you show me that it's somebody else magically. I can't testify to that.
There's no magic about this. It's your testimony. I'm just asking you what you see.
Magic. I can't believe he said it in that way, but what we're looking at is, you see that character right there? He says that he can't confirm that it's Proctor, but Proctor was wearing a winter hat, and that kind of sort of looks like a winter hat to me.
Do you see the person toward the back of the vehicle walking toward the opposite side of the SUV?
I do.
What area does he appear to be going to?
He appears to be going towards the rear passenger side of the vehicle, although it does not appear so because the video is inverted, a mirror image. That's where he's going.
And Sergeant Buchanan, you testified for at least a half an hour about this video yesterday, correct?
I'm sorry, it was a long day. I don't know the timing of how long I testified.
You significantly testified about this video yesterday, did you not?
I testified about this video.
And you testified that it was true and accurate, correct?
Correct.
You testified that it was reflective of your observations of what was happening in that Sally Port that evening, correct?
I testified that this is a accurate scene and collection of video evidence from the Sally Port.
And as that truck sits in that Sally Port, just like this, it appears from all perspectives that what we're looking at is the passenger side of the car, and that right rear taillight is right there shining in our face, correct? From this perspective.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
From this perspective, from the perspective that the jurors are looking at,
Okay.
from all indications, that would appear to be the right side of the truck, the passenger side of the truck, and that taillight that you can see is the right rear taillight from this perspective, correct?
The way it presents itself, yes.
And yesterday, during the entirety of your questioning by Mr. Lally, not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted,
I
correct?
did not know.
Mr. Lally didn't ask you if it was inverted, correct?
That's correct.
Interesting. Interesting. So, one of the things you want to do if you're a trial lawyer is if there's something bad on your case, if you're prosecuting or a plaintiff's attorney in a personal injury case, if there's a problem with your case, you want to bring it up and you want to deal it. You don't want to ignore it and have the other side bring it up because you know what? That makes you look really bad. That makes you look really bad. Did he look bad?
And even, I understand that it's a hard moment for everybody involved, but it's just yes, no, correct, and correct is just like, it felt like there's a lot of him trying to defend himself, with confidence in the case, you're going to just state your case the way that it is. And it wouldn't, a big part of this already is just that, like you said, it's the defense coming in and taking the prosecution's witnesses and flipping it. And a lot of it is just the witnesses themselves not being super just solid. And like we've already seen in previous days, bringing up going a little off the rails. I think that it would have been nicer just to see a little instead of, I don't know, like, I don't like even just like where you testifying for 30 minutes is just like, I don't know. Sure. Like, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. Maybe he was right for saying like, oh, I don't know how long I was up there, but it just seems very combative and uncooperative is from an outside perspective. And even certain things like previously how they had like the picture of the phone box and then they have the other part of where they're excavating. Maybe they had more photos that I missed, but I'm sure the jury would appreciate just a very large transparent photo of the whole area. It just feels like there's not a lot of transparency. And I think that the jury is going to pick up on that.
Yeah, it's just it was not a good day for the prosecution where they, here we are in week 6 and we haven't had a lot of forensic evidence solved. Brian Higgins and his not so discreet, you're hot. Oh, I agree. The emails and kind of the salacious kind of stuff, and Jennifer McCabe being on the stand and being very confrontational with the defense attorneys. And so it's been 5 weeks of that back and forth and the personal kind of stuff. So now here we finally get to some of the forensic evidence, and it doesn't go well for the state. It doesn't go as smoothly as it should be. I mean, the dream of any trial attorney is, here's my evidence. I lay a foundation. I show that it's relevant. I show it's authentic. It goes in. We move on to the next thing. Bada bing, bada boom. It's like playing a concerto on the piano. You go from one movement to the next. Not that I'm a pianist. But in any event, my point is you want this stuff to go in smoothly. You don't want to, admit, oh, geez, we showed the picture backwards. So maybe somebody's lurking behind there and fiddling around with the tail light. And that was the implication. That was the implication that someone, whether it was Proctor We don't know. I mean, come on. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was him fiddling around with the taillight. Maybe I'm totally off base to even suggest that. But you better bet that some of the jurors are just scratching their heads. Here we are in week 5, and what is going on in this case? It's an interesting case. That's all I'm going to say.
I definitely agree with all of that. I think that I don't even know what room the defense is going to have for their own witnesses at this point, because they're doing a really good job with the prosecution's witnesses in establishing reasonable doubt. And I think that certain things could have been argued. It's like, okay, well, maybe she backed up into the telephone box, but then also, how would that even pertain to hitting someone? I don't know. It's messy. It's a messy case.
So the other issue that came up in week 6 was this business of all the drinking, and the drinking that was said to have gone on in 2 bars in Canton, Massachusetts on January 28th of 2022. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, so on direct examination, Buchanan narrated video surveillance footage of Karen Read in 2 bars on January 28, 2022. He described the drinks as being in cylindrical, our cylinders over here, drink glasses, and claimed that Read consumed 7 drinks at C.F. McCarthy's bar in Central Canton before heading across the street to meet up with others at Waterfall Bar and Grill. From what he saw in security camera footage, Buchanan also claimed Read consumed at least 2 more drinks at Waterfall before then driving to herself and O'Keefe to 34 Fairview Road, the home which they were invited to along with everyone else at their party at Waterfall, and then home on whose front lawn O'Keefe would be found dead the next morning.
So yeah, that and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't the receipts be the best evidence? I mean, she at the first bar, in any event, C.F. McCarthy's, they did show these cylindrical. Have you ever seen a glass that wasn't cylindrical? I guess
some square ones.
Yeah. I've seen, like, once I went to somebody's house and they had these really fancy octagonal glasses, but I don't know why he kept
detail.
He kept describing them as cylindrical drink glasses, and I don't know what other kind of glass there is than a drink glass. But in any event, I kept screaming at the screen saying, "Where are the receipts? Where are the receipts? Where are the receipts?" And to my knowledge, we don't have that. And the other thing I'm thinking is, she's not a big woman; she's a slight woman. And if she drank 6 vodka tonics, I'd think she'd be on the floor. I know I would. I mean, 6 of them. And the other thing that came to mind was in the very first week of this trial, I believe, we heard from the bar manager of that of the Waterfall, actually, saying that when people went, there was nobody that was overly intoxicated. So I don't know. There's drunk and then there's really drunk. And I think that if she had 6 drinks, I think she would have been much more intoxicated, and I doubt if she even would have been able to operate a vehicle.
6, 7 drinks is a very specific number. I don't know about you, but I'm never really paying attention to how much other people are drinking. If they're counting your drinks, I would assume that it's out of alarm of the fact that you're driving, but clearly they weren't alarmed enough at the fact that she was driving to tell her, like, no, to get an Uber. Yeah, like you said, it's just like 6 drinks, obviously if you're at a place for a few hours, it's different. But even if you're having, 2 drinks every hour, 3 hours, I don't know. I can't even do that many shots.
They actually showed this surveillance footage from C.F. McCarthy's where they actually showed her being served these drinks, but it wasn't that clear. I don't know why we didn't see the receipts. To my observation, I didn't see them coming. But the other thing is, I mean, one of the whole theories of this whole case was that she intentionally backed into. I mean, remember the second-degree murder charge. That's an intentional killing. We don't necessarily need motive as a technical legal matter, but you do need to show some kind of frame of mind to get the intentional element of murder for a second-degree conviction. And one of the theories that the prosecutor had laid out in their paperwork was that they had been fighting and they weren't getting along. Well, this is the second time we've seen this footage, And he's sitting at the bar. The footage shows her walking in the bar. They embrace. They look like a very happy couple. People that are mad and about ready to kill each other don't, from my experience, I don't know. That's just me reading the evidence. But I mean, it just seemed that week 6 should have been a strong week, with the jurors sitting there for the first 5 weeks, hearing all of this back and forth, and fighting with the prosecutors, and fighting with the defense attorneys, and the defense attorneys pretty much turning all the witnesses, with the defense attorneys at least injecting reasonable doubt in the testimony of the witnesses. You would think that this 6th week of testimony, where they brought in all this video, the video of digging out the glass and the pieces of plastic from the tail light, and digging out the hat of John O'Keefe's, digging all this stuff out of the snow, showing the car, showing it in the garage. You would think that this would be a strong week, but there's an old saying of pulling defeat out of the jaws of victory. And, I don't know. I was talking to somebody today, and they said, can we agree that she's going to be acquitted? And I said, well, I'm trying to remain objective here, but I don't know. If you were a juror, and we're only at week 6, and they're saying there's going to be several more weeks of testimony, but if you were a juror right now, Lainey Law, would you vote guilty or not guilty?
If she had to intentionally be doing it, even from just that perspective, like, a lot of people, I'd imagine that the jury at this point is questioning if she even hit him at all. But even if a juror is convinced that she did hit him,
Right.
I'd imagine that the juror is not convinced that it would even have been intentional, especially after that many drinks.
Yeah. All this evidence with the car and the plastic, I'm not going to say so what. I will acknowledge that they found some stuff in the yard. They found glass. They found the taillight. But the jury has had the thought injected into their mind, was there a chain of custody? The jury has had the thought injected into their mind, wait a minute, this state police sergeant, a sergeant of the Massachusetts State Police, went there in February of 2022, but he didn't write his report until November of 2023, which is only a few months before this trial. What?
But it's like, even though writing the report is just like, I can't even trust the report a month after something had happened. It's just like, you ask me what I ate for breakfast yesterday. I have no idea. How are you going to testify to something that's happened months, close to a year, over a year? Like,
and he also testified, and we didn't include this in our earlier summary, but he had also testified that he had just met with Adam Lally, the prosecutor, very recently during the time since this trial began. And so it just makes you scratch your head. Sure. If you know police officers, and I've known a few, they, at the end of their shift, they're, cussing under their breath because they've got to go back to the station and write up a report on all of this stuff. Now, it's a lot easier. Now that we have the electronic stuff that we have, it's a lot easier. But at the end of their shift, while all this stuff is fresh in their minds, they've got to go back and write a report and document it all while it's fresh on their minds. No, I don't remember, if 21 months ago, I don't remember stuff that I did, much less want to write a report that's so accurate that I would sign off on it and present it to a jury. That's just not. And this is a sergeant in the state police. So there was a lot of talk about whether or not Michael Proctor, who was the chief investigator, was going to testify, because he's on the witness list. The discussion is whether or not he'll actually be called to the stand, because he is the subject of a federal investigation. And a lot of people speculated that because the sergeant that we saw on the stand in this episode was being asked a lot of questions about the investigation, whether he was kind of being brought in to replace Michael Proctor. But at the end of week 6, there are now reports that, yes, Proctor's going to be called to the stand. He will be a difficult witness for everyone. I guess it's one of those cases where they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. They bring him on the stand. He's a dirty witness. I have to say it, because he's under investigation for the way he handled this investigation. But if they don't bring him in, now people are saying, wait a minute, he was the chief investigator and he's not being brought in to testify. So This case is presenting a challenge, and again, I'm trying to still maintain a practice, and I don't have the time that I wish I had. There are some creators out there who are attorneys, and they're very good, and they're on this case for 8 hours. They sign on at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're on until 5, 4:30, 5, 6, because sometimes they'll stay on after the day is over and I digest it all. And my hat's off to them. Some of them are doing a really, really, really good job, and I enjoy watching their channels, but I'm still trying to maintain some kind of a practice. And I have to, this week I had some deadlines that I had to, work towards and get some documentation done. And I have court filings that have to be dealt with. But this case just draws you in. One of the other guys in my office heard me in my office this week, and he says, "Has this case totally drawn you in?" And I went into denial, but most people that deny things are guilty of them. So I don't know.
It's just been a very messy situation. It's something that, I don't know, it feels like it didn't have to get to this point. I think that there's a lot of emotions involved. I think it's going to be really hard even for just that case. Every case is difficult, especially with crime. Its emotions are high, but in this situation where even the witnesses aren't really able to hold their composure, it's becoming something else.
It's become something else. All right. My closing thoughts are we have a couple of more weeks of testimony. The jury has got to be just wondering what's going on, because in the previous week, in week 5, there's only 1 day of testimony. This week, in week 6, there were only 3 days of testimony. It's really kind of a part-time trial, and I don't know. I told my jury story before. I've never actually sat on a jury, but if I was impaneled to be on a jury, and you're taken away from your life, you're taken away from your work, you're taken away from any family obligations that you have, and to then be pushed into a courtroom where they only sit 1 day a week or 3 days a week. I don't know. I really don't know. And to your point earlier, you said, how do you remember what you had for breakfast that morning? How do you remember the testimony of 6 weeks ago? I mean, each attorney will have, of course, the right to do a closing argument. And, sure, there'll be a really strong closing argument for the defense. But I mean, how will these jurors remember? Do you remember what we were talking about 6 weeks ago?
Oh my God, and no universe. Exactly. That's such a great point. What video did we put out 6 weeks ago? Let us know in the comments.
I don't know. All right. So we always end this by saying, please be polite and respectful to people that you run into in the grocery store and at the gas station, because we don't know what they're going through. And also be polite and respectful in our comments down below. We love your comments. We don't mind if you disagree with us. But, be respectful, be polite. We do delete the comments that personalize it all, either to us or to other people that are involved in the cases we talk about. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you've enjoyed this, and have a great day. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts, and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions.
And that's that.
And that's that.
And that's that.
And that's the way it is. There used to be a newscaster many, many, many years ago, and he would end every newscast by saying, and that's the way it is.
And that's the way this trial goes. And that's about the law.
Crazy, 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 crazy trial. I've never really seen anything like it. I mean, the buildup to it was just incredible. I mean, the coverage, TV, newspaper, YouTube, everywhere, the buildup was something. And I kind of thought, well, I think this trial is going to be a letdown, and I think that it's just going to go relatively smoothly, and it'll go through, and that will be that. But anything but is happening in this case. It's just, and I have watched some of the better commentators and some of the attorneys, and they're doing a very good job. I just don't know where they get the time. I really.
Well, the whole thing too, like you said, is just like we were making a video about this about a year ago. And we never really thought that it would evolve to be at the point that it is right now. It's just like you think about Kohlberger case, and it's very messy before trial, but maybe things will go smoothly. We don't know. But with this case, it's just like, okay, things seem messy. There's a lot of social media frenzy, but maybe in trial, everything will even out a little bit. And you can tell these people have definitely been affected by everything going on in the media. And I think that's where a lot of the defensiveness comes into play.
I think if the Commonwealth made errors, again, I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can be, but if the Commonwealth made errors, it seems to me that where you're up against a team of defense attorneys, just, he's outgunned. Adam Lally is trying to do it himself. Say what you will about him. I don't care. He's outgunned because it's 2 against 1, and that's not fair. I mean, if you go into a debate, something as simple as a high school debate team, if it's 1 against 1, great. If it's 2 against 2, just like in tennis, if there's 2, there's 2 on the other side. But to have, actually there's 3 on the other side. I'm forgetting about Elizabeth Little. Elizabeth Little has actually taken a witness or 2, and you see that she's taking notes during the whole thing. And it seems as though Defense Attorney David Yannetti and Defense Attorney Alan Jackson are alternating. One will take one witness, the other will take the other witness. But if for no other reason I used to try a lot more cases than I do now, to be really honest with you, but to have someone else with you, if for no other reason than to keep you organized, they hand you the papers. You don't have to go back over to the bench and paw through your file. I know I had something here where now, no, you've got somebody that says, here's your file right here.
Or even like post-it notes, just put like a little tab on it. It's just like, you're going to need these papers. Be a little more organized about it.
My problem is I put post-it notes on every page.
Color coordinate.
The pink ones are now. Is this a pink one or a green one or a yellow one? But if for no other reason, then that's one reason to have someone hand you stuff. I mean, maybe something comes up that's unanticipated, which does happen. I don't care how well prepared you are. Stuff happens that wasn't anticipated. Somebody else can paw through the file and hand you that document. But the other thing is that you go back to the bench, or you go back to your table, and the other attorney will tell you, you had 5 bullet points and you only did 4. What about this? Or you missed this in your argument. Or sure, you've got your client sitting there. And Karen Read seems to be taking a relatively active role in her own trial, as well she should. They seem to come back and talk to her before they sit down and relinquish their time with the witness. But they also, I see Yannetti and Jackson consulting with each other. If Jackson is working with a witness, before he yields his time back, he goes over and he talks to the other attorney. What did I miss? What else should I do? And you see them actually doing that. You see them, actually we used that shot as one of our screenshots. I think we actually used that as our screenshot in the beginning of 2 episodes ago in this case. They were huddled together and they're all talking. So, I mean, so they have 3 of them. They have 3 of them, and Lally is just all by himself. And it just, I think the Commonwealth screwed up. I mean, certainly they have the resources. Certainly the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office has the resources to put somebody in there. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me.
I mean, even just we talk about the jury's perception. It's like to see them working as a team plays off a little bit better than to see someone that's seemingly a little bit discombobulated by themselves. I mean, I think that you have a good point where it's like when you're working with a team of people, you can go back and forth and discuss like what you missed and stuff like that. And I think it just also looks good to be a team player at the end of the day.
I mean, would you, if you were a boxer, and I actually used to know a Golden Glove boxer. I actually knew a Golden Glove boxer one time. Would you want to be a boxer and go into the ring alone and have 3 people coming after you?
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like on anything you're doing, it's always good to have a second set of eyes, and it's always good to be working with people who kind of understand and you work well with. I think, we're humans, we're social creatures. We're always going to do better as a group.
Even in airplanes, in commercial airplanes, you've got to have. They used to call it the pilot and the co-pilot. They don't call it that anymore. They call it the pilot. And they call it the captain and the first officer. So when you get on a plane, a commercial plane to fly from here and there, there's a captain and a first officer. If God forbid something happens to the captain, the first officer is there. But the other reason is so that one can watch the other guy. One can watch the other guy and make sure that everything is being done correctly. So anyhow, all right. Okay, I guess we beat this dead horse.
And no more tunnels.
No more tunnels.
No more tunnels, no more dead horses.
Thanks for watching. Thank you. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.